Hey guys, Juan and Angelica here again, and this is our second recording that we're doing during this time that we're not technically on quarantine. We're just kind of staying at home.
I'm so tired of that word.
I know, right? Quarantine.
I'm so fed up with that damn word.
But we're technically not in quarantine here in Houston. We're just under stay home, work safe.
Lock in, lock down, lock something.
Well, before they actually did the stay home, work safe program, which was just yesterday.
So I have a question.
We were already on quarantine.
We were self-isolating. We weren't doing social distancing. We were doing self-isolating. Do you remember back in middle school, there used to have something called lock-in? Like it was a lock-in. Yeah, and then they had it in high school also, I think.
What was that?
A lock-in is that when you would stay the night at school, like in the cafeteria, you would take like a cover to sleep and stuff, and then you would just play games.
I remember them doing that, but my dad was too strict. He never let us do it. He was like, "Nope, you're not staying anywhere.
You're not going anywhere.
You're staying here at home. That's it."
Yeah.
No, but
it feels like that. But except this is an ongoing, everlasting thing.
Yeah. I mean, so like technically, like it's been a little while, and I just thought we would do another kind of like conversation. Not necessarily. We don't have to talk all about coronavirus, but I just wanted to talk and just kind of connect again and kind of see where how things have been going. So I don't know if you want to like share anything, or if you want me to start sharing anything about kind of how the past couple of days have been.
Did you hear me say hard?
Or like what it is getting used to, like being in this new, everybody calls it the new reality. I feel like that's a TV show or something.
The new reality. Yeah. No, well, the only thing that it worries me really is my mental health. So this feels a lot like it did before. I don't remember if you remember, like when I was go for like I would stay indoors a lot, and I feel those creeping feelings coming back, and that's just worrisome. I think I'm just there trying to deal with my mental health.
Yeah, and I think that's a good, like, I think a lot of people have been kind of bringing that up a little bit, like how some people are starting to feel struggle with the idea of being at home. But for somebody like you who was already like, you already knew that you had some like issues regarding
underlining mental health issues.
Yeah. So like for you, I imagine it's only like, elevated even more, right? Than what you're feeling if you just are feeling a little bit like, I feel like cabin fever or something.
So it's a good thing, and then it's a bad thing, because I can recognize when something's wrong. I can recognize it. But the problem is that with people who haven't dealt with their anxiety or haven't dealt with their mental health issues, they probably don't know how to. They're probably struggling a little bit because they don't know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But because I can just recognize when I'm going down that hole, when I'm like doing really bad, I can surf the mentality of it, right? And then some people are just like, no, like they go against their natural instincts, and it's difficult. It's difficult. I it's unfortunate that I can't see people to have conversations with them, like real one-on-one conversations, to like really like something happens when you have an in-person conversation as opposed to online or in person or even like video chatting.
But I think like that's like isn't part of it that like it takes a while to even like identify, even come to terms with maybe, maybe I do have a mental health issue that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that like a process in itself? So like, if you just like are in 2 weeks into this, a month into this, like that's not enough time, right? To like,
by the time I was recognizing that I had mental health issue, I had already imploded. Like I was like off. I was off the deep end. Like I was what I felt like it was the point of no return. And I would hate to think that that's what people are dealing with, and they're dealing with that either one alone, or two, they really don't have that
the support system.
Support system.
But what are the things that you're doing to like deal with it, to cope, like during this time when you feel like especially stressed, or you're starting to feel like maybe a lot of anxiety, or you're starting to feel like even like hey, am I slipping into a little bit of depression? Like what are your go-tos to like
mine? Well, first and foremost, I have to recognize that I'm actually feeling what I'm feeling, because if I don't, then I can linger there, and that's unfortunate to want to like to do, and I don't want to do that. To stay there of like denial of like, no, this is not what's happening, because oh my god, when I did that the first time, you seen how that like turned out for me. I denied that there was something wrong with me. I just thought that this is who I am for the rest of my life. And so,
and it's easy to go down that rabbit hole because in the moment, if you're not feeling like, I imagine, like if you're not feeling like any hope, or if you feel like you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, then you're like, is this my new, like, my new everyday?
That's sad that can be somebody's new reality, is that they're losing hope that this is not going to end, that there's no further out, right? Because people, and scientists, doctors, and whatever, everybody's like wants to put it out there and be like, it's gonna be months, right? And it scared me to think that I don't know who it was, but we were watching what is it,
YouTube? No,
not a YouTube, when they were doing, like, when Trump comes on and
a press conference.
Sorry, but Jesus heavens, I can't think of the word. So when I was watching a press conference, one of the doctors said, this is going to be a while. It's going to be a while before we find not a cure, but before we get vaccines for it, before we can figure out what this really is. It's going to be 12 to 18 months. And that's at the earliest. And so at the latest, it can be 2 years of like dealing with the anxiety of, am I going to get this? Am I going to get this? Am I going to get this? You know what I mean? And so that can create a lot of
stress, a lot of anxiety, like, especially if you're like thinking about it like just a couple of days in and you're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to be able to like stay indoors for so long, or like not be able to see people, not be able to do that. You see, that's the thing though. That's the unfortunate thing, is that we keep thinking that we're going to be self-isolating, and it's just social distancing. It's that social distancing that we're not understanding, right? It's not isolation. It's just not being so close to each other, like physically. It might feel like a prison, but it's not a prison. You can still go outdoors, you can still get in your car, you still have that freedom, you know what I mean? But it's just excuse me, a different kind of freedom. Yeah, but go back to your coping mechanisms, because I don't know if you shared any. I don't know if I did. My coping mechanisms is, one, I have to recognize what's going on with me. And then you did share that one. I did share that. Okay, I have to recognize what's going on with me, and then two, I deal with it in the moment, right? So if whatever it calls for, like if I'm feeling tired, I just run with that. I'm like, wait, well, you know what? I am feeling tired. Not only am I stressed out, have anxiety, but I'm tired. I'm gonna go take a nap. I don't care. So you like, what do they call it? You fold into it. You're like, you roll with it. Okay. Yeah, and if my anxiety, you don't try to fight it. You just kind of go with it. Yeah, if it takes me somewhere dangerous, then I'm not gonna fight it, but I am gonna recognize it, and I have to deal with it immediately. Yeah. But that's dangerous, right? Yeah. But if it's manageable, then, like I said, if it's manageable, and I'm like, you know what, I'm feeling kind of tired. You know what? I can take a nap. I feel like that in general makes it less stressful in your life. Like sometimes when I'm stressed out and I'm like, before, like I would like be like, you know what, I just feel like sitting here and watching TV all day, and then I would beat myself up about it. Like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. Da, da, da. And now some days when I feel like that, I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit here and watch TV, and I'm gonna be okay with that. And then, and like I feel like that, like my like I don't think I suffer from mental health, but I think mentally, like my stress. Like level goes down, because I'm like, I'm not gonna fight this. I'm just gonna embrace it for the day. Like, for whatever reason today I'm feeling like this, and I'm gonna if I can, I'm gonna accept it and just go with it. I had talked about it once during I recognized that I said that when we first all this started, like I went in hard. Like I stopped talking to people. Like I was isolating myself. Like I had been sent to prison. And so it was, for me, it did not do me well, and I don't know why I went that route. And so I was FaceTiming my niece and my nephews, and I started to cry just seeing my nieces and nephews. Like, what in the hell was wrong with me to sit there and just like stop talking? Like, did I think I was gonna like the virus or the germs were gonna transfer through the phone? But maybe that was the first thing, like a coping thing. Like, it's like, I think because what somebody was telling me, like they're like, oh, last week, sorry, I was just in a state of shock, so I didn't really like interact or engage with anybody, because I was just like I was in a state of shock. Like I didn't know what was. It took me that long just to accept that this was happening. That it was a thing. Yeah. And I was like, when she said that, I was like, oh, I didn't really understand it, but I was like, okay, like, yeah. I mean, I accept that, because I'm like, okay, I can, like, I know everybody deals with things differently, but speaking of like things that you like isolate yourself from, like somebody knocked on the door today, and it was the first time that anybody has knocked on the door for like a couple of weeks. And
in a while, yeah, we weren't expecting. I was not expecting an order. Like I've been on top of that. Like
so, you were like, so I was like, they're knocking at the door, and you were like, you got up and went to go look, and you're like, there's some lady over there leaving.
I ran. I got up. You're like, Angelica, there's somebody looking at the door, and I had already you have premises. So I had already set these rules of like, do not open the door if somebody knocks.
Yeah, she was like, I don't want anybody to open the door. If somebody knocks, and then just I'll go. That you didn't say you were gonna open the door, but you said you wanted to like screen them, and you had to. They have to wash their hands and this and that. So I was like,
I said, if somebody knocks on the door,
so I was like, yeah, I don't want to like deal with all that. So I'll just let her deal with it.
Yeah, well, you see, like I stay on top of you on like your cleanliness and what you do and how you handle yourself. And I get so mad because Juan and Edgar have this bad habit of touching everything. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so annoying. And it was annoying before.
But I didn't realize, like,
but y'all do it so much. I do realize.
I don't realize that you do it because it's like you just like walk and you're like, when I walk, like I'll just touch like things like that. And it's not like it's not like a big deal to me. I just kind of like
I've always had these habits where I'm not a germaphobe, but I have these habits of like how I touch things. So when I go to the restroom, I try not to touch anything. Like literally, I use my elbows in my feet. I've managed to learn how to pull out a chair with my foot, open a door with my foot. I don't touch any. Yes, and I also hover when I pee.
Oh, okay. I think that's
like TMI, I don't touch. No, because that's just the way I do things. Like, and it doesn't depend. It's just I know how many people have touched that already, and they're touching other places and things, and they're coughing on their hands.
Yeah, like in a public restroom. Yeah, like that makes sense. That it's like.
But even when you're like, when you're walking into a store and if the doors don't slide and you have to grab the handle to pull it, even that worries me.
But right now, right now, not all the time, right? I mean, just right now.
That was before.
No. Well,
so like, you can just imagine. I'm just heightened at this point.
Like I didn't know that before. Like I just know like now you're like very cautious, or you want us to be very cautious, and it's like a process, but. You know, I think for me, probably the thing that I've like...
Hold on, but you know what's so funny?
What?
That's the way I am, but I go to the thrift store and I love touching everything at the thrift store. And it's pre-owned. And it's... I mean, I'm crazy like that. I'm so...
Everything is used and comes from somebody's closet.
Yeah, but I'm crazy, right? So I'm so, like, if it's freshly touched by somebody else, nope. I'm not gonna touch it. But if it's like at a thrift store and it's like, you know what I mean?
But they have handled it too. Like the employees have handled it and they've like moved it around and they've like they have to go through that stuff and like pick up. That's the thing, though. Like, it's sort it and all that.
Their employees have touched it, not the entire population has touched it.
And then you have to think like then the shoppers go in and then all the shoppers like grab stuff and they like are shuffling through it.
Yeah.
So
but that's an extreme.
But
now I pay attention to those details
because of coronavirus.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, like I think the thing that I'm like, I forgot. What did I ask you at the beginning about your like things that you were like experiencing? Is that what I was asking you? So I think for me, like I guess the only thing is like the only thing that like not the only thing, but I guess the thing that has been more on my mind is more like how to like client base, but like it's not work related. So like I'm like. More like on the work side is where I'm like more paying attention than like the safety. I'm kind of like, oh, you know, we're kind of on autopilot because you already have like all the stuff figured out and you already like have all the precautions. So I'm not really worried about that. Not that I'm like in terms of like us being like here at the house, like having safety, but like I am worried about like other people like getting infected, like, you know, my mom or other people like that, like the risks for everybody else. But I think, top of mind, I think like getting used to this new like normal that we're on.
This is the new normal.
It's just like functioning, like trying to function and continue to like function on all the stuff that we were doing before, and then realizing that a lot of stuff is pausing, a lot of stuff is shifting, a lot of stuff is pivoting.
It's not stopping.
No, it's just going in a different direction, and it's just
pivoting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you're like, it's like pivoting, and it's like
but how are you dealing with that pivot?
Well, the first couple of days, it was like a lot of people were like just kind of waiting to like like a lot of people were waiting to see what was going to happen, or waiting to see what, like,
I think they thought it was going to blow over with a couple of days.
Well, it was going to blow over, and I think a lot of people were waiting to see more, like, okay, well, what's the decision was going to come from somebody else to you, and then
somebody was going to tell you.
Somebody was going to tell you, like, this is how we're going to do things now. And I think my approach from the beginning, like, my approach from the beginning was like, no, this is the time, like, to really, like, start thinking, to start, like, making moves, to start, like, trying to, like, do things in a different direction, to start thinking about, like, what are the things that we weren't doing before that we need to do now, and, like,
or so, what are the things. So you look, for me, it's more like you look at your plan, and you look at what you still can do on your plan, and what you did, what are you doing to pivot that?
Yeah.
And you have to it's a quick turnaround, because this was fast. And so what did you do?
So what
are you doing?
Like, well, I mean, like, in the beginning, like, one of the first things that we started to do, that I was like, you know what, we have to start looking at how everybody is responding to this, how people are like, different companies, organizations, like, how people are responding, what the conversation is, and, like, how that relates to kind of what we should kind of be thinking about. And not that we want to, like, copy what other people are doing, but I think it's good always to have that reference.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know what, that's a valuable asset to be able to offer to clients, right? To be able to say, like, so we're doing the legwork for you, because, even though our projects might be on pause, here's something that we can do that's proactive. So I think what I was saying was, like, to the people I work with, I was like, you know what, like, it's about, we have, like, if you're not proactive, if you're not moving, then that's when you're going to get in trouble. Like, that's when you're going to get in trouble, because you're not actually trying to do something. You're not trying to, like, figure out how to make things work. You're not figuring out, like, you're not trying to find solutions. If you're just, like, not doing that, if you're just waiting and, like, oh, you know what, somebody's going to tell me what to do, or they're going to eventually tell me how to reposition. I think people are just waiting to see what other reposition.
That's not a bad thing either, because I think some people are just waiting for other people to make moves and see how they're doing things, to see if they can adjust like that.
But I think when you're in a position, like, if you're what do you call it, consultants in some way, so then I think that it's on you, like, it's to your benefit to, like, to take action and to say, you know what, let's start thinking about things without having to wait.
Well, that all depends also on the client. Like, if the client doesn't know what they're doing, it's difficult to take a leadership role. Because
I mean, I think in general you can provide recommendations, and I think that's just maybe that's just my mentality, but, like, to me, my mentality is, like, now is the time to really start shifting and really start, like, thinking and really start growing outside the box a little bit, and, like, things that you didn't do before, like, start doing them now.
Everything, it does. It feels like everything, like somebody just just grab the world and shake it a little, and we're like, all right, figure it out.
But then, I mean, I guess that the uncertain thing is, like, what happens next, like, the uncertain thing is, like, how long is this gonna last?
That is the part that is the part that I am having the hardest time dealing with, is the uncertainty of it, and no, we can't get any straight answers from anywhere, even from ourselves. Like, nobody said, all right, we might be able to resume our life, in 8 to 12 months. Resume our lives in 18 to 24 months. Even that much, like, even that I would appreciate.
I think people are afraid to say that, because how are you going to tell people, like, if people are not even listening to you right now, when they're like, when you're telling them right now, like, stay in your home for the next couple of days, for the next weeks. If people are not even listening to you already, like, how are you going to tell them it's going to be 18 months or 2 years before you can be back to normal? Because then people are really going to be like, you know what, well, screw this. I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want. If I get it, I get it, and that's it. And I think that's
the mentality.
For a lot of people, that is the mentality. Like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to do I'm just going to do me. But now, like, I think people are starting to get more strict, but even at that, like, the U.S. is not that strict, right? I mean,
no, they're not. They're very relaxed and lenient, and they other people from other nations and around the world keep, like, I feel like they're making, how it's like the bad kid, like, in the classroom. I feel like we're the bad kid in the classroom. We're just not reacting to it, or that's what I hear, at least from other, like I said, from other places and other news sources. But wow, I completely forgot what I was going to talk about right now.
We were talking about from the business side, and then we switched, and we were talking about more.
I don't know. We'll leave that alone.
Leave it alone.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, like, I'm not like that. Like I'm not like, I don't feel like that much anxiety about being at home. Like I think I'm okay with being at home. Like it's just now just doing everything digital, everything on via video calls and via phone calls is different, you know, because I feel like I'm as busy as I was before. It's just busy in a different way, and I'm like, okay, like I don't know if that's the way that I should expect it to continue to go, or if eventually like this is just for right now and then things are gonna switch up again and it's gonna go back to normal, or I don't know. I'm like that's where I'm confused. I'm like, is this like really the new normal of like how people are gonna work, or is this just like a right now thing?
I think this will teach us. It's so difficult because we've never dealt with anything like this in recent, you know, anybody who's alive today has never gone through any of this, so there is no way anybody can tell us anything. I think the last closest thing that we've ever had to dealing with something like this was like the Ebola, and I think that was like, it was like minute.
Well, there was a Spanish flu, remember, but that was way before our time.
It was like in 1918.
But like,
so unless you were like 140, would you be able to remember that time?
No, but I think people like will remember like people talking about maybe like that time when the Spanish flu happened.
But it was different.
Yeah,
people weren't getting on airplanes and flying across the world.
Yeah,
that's why it spread so fast.
Yeah.
People what it was then is not now, so it's different. Like I said, it's nothing in recent years that we can sit there and compare it to. So it like I said, the uncertainty is the part that scares me the most. I wish somebody would just tell us something, like if, like I know some people are so afraid of like martial law being told, like, you know, where it's the reserve, the National Reserve, and like the local police department, like they have control over the entire, you know, where they mandate certain things, like, okay, you can do this, and you got curfew, and you got that, and you got this, and you got to do this. That's rough.
Yeah. Well, I do want to switch a little bit and now talk to something I just remembered. Like you were having a conversation with me like before a couple of days ago. And that's kind of part of the conversation that I wanted to have here, but I just remembered. But but it was like you were talking about social content, and you know how, like, when we're talking about pivoting, you should also be thinking about like pivoting your social content. And so from the perspective of like, if you're an influencer and you're doing like, if you've been doing like something that's like, you know, very niche, and now all of a sudden you have to switch and you have to like, now like this is happening. So like, do you keep posting the regular content that you always posted, or do you switch up your message, or how do you deal with that? Like I think that I feel like a lot of people are like
now that
kind of trying to figure that out.
It reminds me of what I was gonna say earlier about like this time right now and what we're going through. I'm actually getting a sense of like who is doing what, and I'm paying close attention. Like I'm taking notes. Like I can tell right away who's being proactive, and like you said, who's doing listening, whether that's social personal listening, or the social listening, whether that's a brand or a company or whatever it may be. I'm paying attention more to like how people are reacting or not reacting to it. And I have to say that those who I thought were gonna have like a better approach to it were disappointing. Whether it's the initial messaging of like you know, is it really a big deal? Is it really and I'm like, what the, why are you like, you're not a scientist, you're not a doctor, you're completely smart, and I totally agree with some of the things you say, but why were you taking this so lightly from the beginning? You were told, we've seen what was happening, we were keeping up with what was happening in China, we've seen sick people, and you're thinking that we're overreacting here?
Do you think part of that is because it was such a surprise for people, so people that weren't paying attention, and then all of a sudden from one day to the next they're like, all of a sudden they start hearing coronavirus?
That isn't, no, that negates it. So if you do not understand it, why is your opinion on it so big? You know what I mean? Like, if you have the slightest clue, first of all, I think even doctors, some of them have the slightest clue. If they're in the unknown, how do you? We keep looking at this, and I agree. I agree that economically, this is going to impact us. Far more than what we expect, I think. I agree. But then it becomes a human thing, right? Do we put our economics before we put, our thoughts into like humanity and being, I don't know, taking care of those who need to be taken care of? Should we put dollar signs on that?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think the concern, and I think I understand the concern to a certain degree, because I feel like I'm concerned about it. Like, how do you expect the U.S. government and all the governments in the world to be able to survive, like being closed for?
Do you hear it? You're cooking those cookies in the.
Yeah. Like, how do you survive? Like going months, being weeks, months closed, with businesses closed, with everything closed. Like, how do you survive that? And like, to me, that's the concerning part. Is like, how do you come out of that? Like, how do you like deal with that?
How do you come out of that? So like when people talk about like like when people say like, oh, well, the people that are just wanting the economy to start the economy up again. I mean, I can understand why, like, people want the economy to get restarted again and not close down. Yeah, but a lot of the messages,
like, not be closed for so long.
But the point of our economy is to survive, so our community and our world and our country can survive. But if we're folding for the weak, so for the better good of the economy, then what does that say?
Yeah, no, and I don't that's why I'm like confused, or not confused, but that's where I'm like, like I can see like why the economy is important, but I can also see like I don't think that we should sacrifice anybody for like the sake of the economy. Like, I don't think we should be
Here's
like,
the thing.
You know what, let's just
It's
screw
not,
the old people. Like,
or not the old people, but screw those who are going to be impacted harsh, right?
Yeah.
It's not, for me, it's not difficult. For me, is we knew what was going to happen. I think if action could have taken earlier, it could have been controlled faster.
But you're starting to hear like people that are getting laid off. You're starting to hear people that are losing their jobs.
And we know people personally.
Yeah, like that are getting laid off, that they don't know like where they're going to get their money from. And yeah, like the stimulus thing is saying that you're going to get $600 more than what you get on workers' comp. But is that enough? Like if you're an hourly worker and you no longer have a job, is $1,200 going to be enough for you, like for 1 month? Like, is that going to be like sustain you? Like, that's the crazy part. Like, and then if you make over a certain income, then you probably won't even get anything. So like, what about you? You're just kind of screwed because you make too much money, like that. I'm not talking about the millionaires. I'm talking about just like you made $80,000. Like, is $80,000 really a livable wage in the United States? Like, I mean, I don't mean to sound crass or like sound like, oh, like that's not a livable wage, but like
you do kind of sound a little privileged here, Juan.
No, but I'm saying, is that really like is that like
for what you want to do? Should
that really be the cutoff? Like, oh, like if you make more than, I don't even know if that's a number, but like, is that
we're just making stuff up? Yeah.
Is that the cutoff? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, that seems like everybody needs a little help. So that's why when they first said $1,000 per American, then I was like, okay, that makes sense, because if you have 5 people in your home, you get $5,000. If you have 10 people, then you get 10,000. If you have one person,
you're going on a rant here.
Then you have 1,000.
I think you're going on a rant here. I think you're unsatisfied with what you've been hearing lately.
I'm just following the stimulus package, and I'm frustrated with it.
You're frustrated with it. Yeah, I see. I can tell at this point. But but like I said, like going back to what I was talking about, that I can tell now who the way people have reacted to it and what they're doing and how they're handling the situation. And I don't know, to me, that just, here's the thing, that like, I want to be comfortable in my mindset. I want to be like okay with the choices that I make, and that now is starting to include the people that I'm actually like following.